you're not clear and your proposition isn't very clear and the benefit to consumers isn't very clear, then you will lose in what is a very, very busy and dynamic marketplace. I think that's a really good point.
We've certainly found that our most successful magazines are ones that listen to a mantra we have, which is let the readers in. And we've in fact done a lot more reader events now. Our office was swamped. A couple of weeks ago we had a whole load of 12-year-old girls coming in to talk to us about Girl Talk. In the Good Food and Olive kitchen upstairs, we have readers regularly come in, look at covers, discuss content, test recipes for us. And in fact, a really good example of a magazine that has engaged with this democratized media and welcomes the reader in as an equal and doesn't patronize anymore is Olive magazine. They have the most amazing feature every month called a cook-off, where they ask the readers from a reader panel. We have 120,000 people on a reader panel, and we can, segment. They come from our subscription database, and we ask them if they would like to, if they fancy having a cook-off against Gordon Ramsay. And so, a reader will say her lemon tart is better than Gordon Ramsay's, and then we get other readers to have a dinner party and do a blind tasting of the two. And currently, I think Gordon's down about 9-6 in 3 draws. And should I say this? Yeah, his agent is quite pissed off about it actually. And quite regularly we use readers decide the questions they want us to ask in interviews where we have access to people. And I really think letting readers in, bringing them into the magazine, is rather what's happening in the digital world anyway, creating communities. It's actually really good fun as well.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a question about content? Because I feel that the sort of mainstream publishers are caught in a kind of pincer movement to some extent. On the one hand, you've got Lord Justice Eady and the vast paraphernalia of the law controlling what can and cannot be said, and some of the most restrictive laws in the world, as I understand, apply in the UK. On the other hand, you've got public relations industry that are managing images and using their power to allow access to some publications and some journalists and deny it to others, particularly those that upset them. And when I look for content and opinion and analysis, I know that if I'm going to mainstream sites, and I used to be a subscriber to both Pro Cycling and Cycle Monthly during the 90s and all through the Festina affair and everything else, I know I was being spun a line by those journalists because they were still, you can't buy LA Confidential here because of our libel laws, and they had to stay in with the PRs to allow them access to do their job. In the wild west of the internet and the web, I can find people who don't give a damn about Lord Justice Eady and our laws, and don't give a damn about their access to the stars and public relations. And once you've kissed quite a few frogs, you find 1 or 2 princes and you stick with them, because it's a damn sight more interesting than the bounded knowledge that we get through an industry controlled by law on the one hand and PRs on the other.
I'm sorry to have lost you as a reader. I mean,
are you guys lobbying for our libel laws to become something which is suitable for the internet age? I mean, it's Dickensian in both senses.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, there are over 300 super injunctions out at the moment. In some recent poll of, freedom of the press, a country that, sounds a bit poncy-this, but gave the world democracy and everything, we're number 53. I mean, Iceland, Norway, countries are streets ahead of us. I think it's an absolute disgrace. I don't think people go on about the Iraq war and everything, but also running underneath all of that during the Tony Blair years were more and more restrictive practices on the media. And for whatever one might think about America, and I went to journalism school and business school in America, it has a far freer press than we've ever had, and I think it's an absolute national disgrace. In fact, you could almost weep about it. It's disgraceful.
Only me clap.
But I'm with you.
Okay.
want
I
to be a
think-
comrade again, don't you?
I think we have time for one last question from the audience. Okay, well,
Can
we
I
have.
ask a question? Because
Sure.
I just wondered really, are we possibly in danger of walking into a new monopoly? You know, in one area we've got Google, we're free. Are we going to have a new monopoly possibly down the road with Apple for paid and publishers losing control? So what's your view about this growing power with
Well,
Well,
this growing
there's
power?
no doubt that those that are selling content with Apple on the iStore in one guise or another, I'm not going to name names, find it very challenging. Because Apple wants to end consumer, they give very little data, they give very little insight to people who are providing content to sell on the App Store. And I mean, I've had my own kind of fairly challenging meeting with Apple where I thought I was going to learn about what consumers were doing with the iPhone and learnt absolutely nothing. I don't know if they've got the insight either, or if the gatekeepers in the States are not allowing Apple to pass it on in the UK. There is no question it is quite challenging, and I think probably in our industry a lot of it is going to be about who the horrible phrase, who owns the wallet, you know, who has that direct relationship with the consumer. I think many of us have mentioned data today and the importance of data and the importance of deep personal connection with the consumer and deep understanding of what they're doing. So I think Apple could be really, really challenging for us. You know, again, not mentioning names, I haven't liked what I've heard about, you know, people I know in the industry who are trying to sell things through the iStore. Having said that, you know, when we've been, we have a site called Mousebreaker, which is a free-to-play online game site, and we've developed a very successful app called Blast Billiards, which has been sold through the iStore. You know, the flip side is there's been very good conversations with Apple about how to promote that app, and if they like it, they will push it up the archive. You know, the key with apps, and I'm not an expert, someone definitely is, you've got to get in the top 10 and you've got to have an app that can go international, because frankly, you're not going to drive any money if you don't. So, you know, we know we need to do that. We know we need to cultivate that kind of editorial relationship with Apple, and that's been quite good. When it comes to actually getting commercial insight, it's very, very difficult, and I think you raise a good point.
It is a good point, it is a concern. Apple are certainly better to work with than Amazon, not only to do with the revenue share, but also their views on creativity and promoting good editorial product. Interestingly, probably 10 years ago, we at BBC Magazines began to get quite concerned about the power of the grocers, and particularly Tesco, and the only big stick we had was Radio Times. So every time they try and delist, I don't know, Sky at Night magazine, would say, well, we'll cut your supply of Radio Times. But it became quite difficult, and we thought in the end they're probably going to win. So we took a big strategic decision that we were going to build our subscription side of the business. And we will be, next autumn, we will be the biggest magazine company in Britain for subscribers. We've got 900, as of this morning, we've got 920,000 subscribers. And we have a direct relationship with them. We talk to them. And it is a concern for us when we're getting more into apps, more into working with Apple on the iPad, that they will own that direct relationship with the consumer. And we will have to, through the apps, you know, then say to people, well, you give them money to, you know, we get the money through Apple, but, you know, enter this competition and we'll collect their details that way. But it is a big issue. Well, control always is an issue.
Can I just add two corollaries to that? I mean,